In the world Clara came from, hospitals were where people were kept alive but never allowed to be weak. White walls gleamed, automatic doors hissed open without a sound, and everyone spoke the language of procedures. Pain wasn't meant to be felt. It was meant to be managed. She grew up in a system where care was a service, not an act of love. Patients were clients, families were obstacles. And the greatest fear wasn't losing someone you loved. It was losing your insurance coverage. But when she stepped into a public hospital in Saigon, she entered a different universe. There was no sterile silence. Instead, there was the clatter of spoons against bowls, the rhythmic whir of paper fans, and the soft murmurs of families mingling with the smell of medicine and home-cooked food. Here, illness wasn't just a medical condition, it was a human condition, fought not only with medicine but with love. There were no barriers, no professionalism to hide behind, only presence, only people. And that was where Clara learned what every healthcare company, insurance policy, and management theory had forgotten. Life isn't sustained by medicine alone, but by the presence of those who love us. That morning, Clara received an urgent call from Mai. Clara, Thu, the vegetable seller from the market, was in a motorbike accident. She's in Cho Ray Hospital, her legs in a cast. The word hospital made Clara's spine tighten. She had been to countless hospitals in New York, for meetings, for conferences. And every single time, what stayed with her wasn't the people, but the smell of disinfectant and the flat mechanical beep of monitors. When she was young, her mother used to say, "Don't be afraid of hospitals, that's where people are healed." But for Clara, hospitals were places where humanity was suspended in the name of safety. On her way to the hospital in Saigon, the chaos of motorbikes, horns, and street vendors overwhelmed her senses. She let out a bitter laugh. How can anyone heal amidst all this noise? But beneath that sarcasm was a deeper fear. She was terrified of witnessing pain, of facing the raw fragility of the human body. In the West, she'd been trained to separate emotion from efficiency. Here she knew there would be no such protection. She was about to step into a space where the walls didn't filter out suffering, and that frightened her more than she cared to admit. The hospital gates were crowded. No one was in line, no one gave orders, and yet everything seemed to move with an invisible communal instinct. Clara walked down narrow corridors where family members cooked noodles with electric kettles, washed clothes in plastic buckets, and slept on straw mats beside the patients' beds. Fans whirred, babies cried, someone laughed softly. She stopped in her tracks. In her world, this was chaos, something to be managed, optimized, sanitized. But here, it was the sound of life continuing. She found Thu's room, a shared ward, 10 beds side by side, and beneath each bed was not empty space but a makeshift home. Thu's mother folded laundry, her eyes deep set, but her expression serene. Her father hung towels on the railing. They weren't just visiting. They belonged there. Clara stood frozen. Where are the nurses? She thought. Why are family members doing all this? Bathing, feeding, changing clothes? In New York, she once attended a healthcare conference titled The Future of Care. The keynote speaker had declared, "Every function can be outsourced, even care. What people need is professionalism." But watching Thu's mother gently blow on each spoonful of porridge before feeding her daughter, Clara realized how hollow that statement was. Here, care could not be outsourced. Love was a core function, one that no contract could ever replace. She was torn. Her rational mind, the one trained through decades of management and cost modeling, whispered, "They're exhausting themselves. This isn't efficient." But another part of her, the one she had buried long ago, the child who once clung to her mother during a fever, murmured, "But this is how people love." She remembered her father, who passed away in an intensive care unit in Boston. No one was allowed to stay overnight. The family was told to leave at 8 p.m. so the patient could rest. In the morning, the phone rang. He was gone, alone. She had once believed that was the right way, that isolation was necessary for modern medicine, but now she wasn't so sure. The smell of porridge, the sound of soft voices, the warmth of bodies in that crowded room, these inefficiencies filled her with a strange peace. She realized that the loneliness inside Western hospitals wasn't the cost of progress. It was the symptom of a deeper loss, the loss of humanity. Later that day, Clara pulled Thu's father aside. She spoke gently, but with the tone of someone used to solving problems with money. "I can help. We could move Thu to a private room, cleaner, quieter. I'll cover the cost and hire a nurse to look after her so your family can rest." The old man smiled kindly. "You're very kind, Miss Clara, but that won't be necessary. Thu needs us here. When she wakes up at night and sees her mother sleeping under her bed, she's no longer afraid. That's the strongest medicine there is, and it can't be bought." Clara was speechless. Her entire career, decades spent measuring the value of human services, collapsed under the weight of that simple truth. She thought to herself, "I've spent my life optimizing everything. I believed every human problem could be solved with enough money, systems, and management. But there are things that can't be outsourced. Some things only exist when you're there, doing nothing except being present." She remembered her old presentations, her company slogans. Time is the most expensive currency. She used to teach others that time should always be converted into money. Now she realized time isn't meant to be sold, it's meant to be given. Clara returned to the room. Thu's mother was dozing, her head resting on the side of the bed. Clara quietly pulled up a small plastic chair and sat beside her. She didn't talk about comfort or money or efficiency. She just sat. Thu opened her eyes and smiled faintly. "You came, Miss Clara? Who's selling vegetables at the market for me?" That simple question pierced Clara's heart. In her world, the first question from a patient was always, "Will the insurance cover this?" Here, a girl with a broken leg worried about others. Clara squeezed her hand and told her about the market, how everyone had pitched in, how the fruit seller brought oranges, and the baker sent soy milk. Thu smiled through tears. Outside, an ambulance wailed into the dusk. Inside, Clara felt something she had never felt in any Western hospital: peace. That night, Clara walked out of the hospital. On the sidewalk, families were eating from styrofoam boxes, chatting and laughing under the streetlights. No one looked defeated. She saw resilience wrapped in love. She thought of the hospitals in America. Private rooms, insulated walls, Wi-Fi access, calorie-counted meals, everything perfect, except for one thing: no one stayed. Patients there shared the same fear, dying alone. She realized the system she had trusted had confused cleanliness with goodness and professionalism with compassion. A hospital could be sterile, but the human heart should never be. Maybe people here are poorer, she thought. But here pain is shared. Each person carries a little piece of it. In America, we stay clean by pushing pain away, by letting someone else handle it. But here they stay human by staying close, even when there's nothing left to give. I used to think love couldn't heal illness. Now I know. Some wounds don't need medicine. They just need a hand that doesn't let go. Clara walked out through the hospital gates. The streetlights glowed amber. The air was cool. On her shoulders, she no longer carried the fear of contamination, but something warmer, invisible. A thread of compassion that tied her to these people. She understood now. Some lessons can't be learned from books or training. You learn them only when you choose to stay. In the smell of medicine, in the sweat of love, in the noise of life that refuses to be silenced. In an American hospital, I saw life sustained by machines. In a Vietnamese hospital, I saw life sustained by hands that held each other. One side was sterile, the other deeply human. And for the first time, I knew where I wanted to be healed. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more contemplative stories. See you next time.